What's happening, everyone? It's the Football Therapist here, talking Week 14 fantasy starts or sits, playoffs. It's starting right now. Let's do a little bit of transparency on our Week 13. For quarterbacks, we were 20 out of 30 starts or sits for 67%. Running backs, we designated 54 running backs for start and sits. We got 40 for 74%. Wide receivers, we designated 71 for starts or sits. We got 47 correct for 66%. And tight ends, we designated 38 starts or sits. We got 28 correct for 74%. Some of our big hits: Derek Carr, Kirk Cousins, Cam Newton, Ryan Tannehill. Pretty much all of our starts we got right. Matt Ryan as a sit, David Montgomery, Naheem Hines, Myles Gaskins, Todd Gurley. Corey Davis was a big play, got that one right big time. Jarvis Landry, Jerry Jeudy as a sit, and Mike Gesicki as a start at tight end. Then our misses: Stafford as a sit, Mayfield as a sit, he went off. Devontae Booker as a start, he didn't really do much for the Raiders, which was surprising. Melvin Gordon as a sit, Damiere Byrd, Marvin Jones as a sit, Cole Beasley as a sit, Jordan Akins, and Trey Burton at tight end. Here are some quarterbacks to start this week: Mitch Trubisky versus Houston, Ryan Tannehill versus the Jaguars, Phillip Rivers versus the Raiders, Matt Ryan versus the Chargers, and Justin Herbert is a big play this week. I think he's going to rebound big time. Atlanta, they give up 24 points per game to quarterbacks. He had 20-plus fantasy points in 8 of his first 9 starts. But the last 2 games, he had 16 and a terrible 4 points last week. I don't think we should overthink this one, though, because Atlanta's defense is that bad compared to quarterbacks. So I would start Justin Herbert this week. Here are some quarterbacks to sit this week: Cam Newton versus the Rams, Jared Goff versus New England. Both defenses very tough there. Thursday night game, I think it'll be low scoring. Tua versus the Chiefs, Derek Carr versus Indy, and then Kirk Cousins versus Tampa Bay. So right now he's QB 12 in leagues, but he's really night and day at home versus away. On the road, he's only averaging 11 points per game, and he's failed to hit 18 points once this season. Earlier in the year, he had a game where he had negative points. Tampa Bay, they're coming off the bye, and I think that they have a really good week defensively, so I would sit Kirk Cousins this week on the road. Here are some running backs that I would start this week: Myles Gaskins versus the Chiefs, Kenyon Drake versus the Giants, Wayne Gallman versus Arizona, Phillip Lindsay versus Carolina, Naheem Hines versus Las Vegas Raiders. And then I really like McKissick this week, so Gibson probably will miss the game. Last week, McKissick, he saw 10 targets, and there's been multiple games where he saw 10-plus targets this year. He averages about 6.5 per game. Now, yes, San Francisco is a pretty good matchup, a pretty tough matchup, but they just gave up a quality performance to Singletary, and with the volume that I could see McKissick getting this game, I would feel confident starting him this week. Here are some running backs that I would sit this week: David Johnson versus the Bears, very tough matchup, and he just hasn't looked the same since coming back from his injury. Chase Edmonds versus the Giants, Todd Gurley versus the Chargers. He saw only 9 touches last week, the same as Brian Hill. Just can't trust the volume this week. Leonard Fournette versus the Vikings, Benny Snell versus Buffalo. James Conner should be back, so he's pretty much irrelevant. And then I don't really know what the Eagles have been doing. Of course, we know about the quarterback change, but Miles Sanders, these last 2 weeks, he had 8 and 10 touches respectively. I don't really know what is happening or why he's in the doghouse, but the volume just isn't there. This matchup is really brutal. I sit him this week if there's a better option on your team. It's just too much risk for a playoff scenario, so I would not start Sanders this week. Here are some wide receivers to start this week: Keek Cootie versus Chicago. I just think that, yes, it's a tough matchup. The volume will be really good for him, so I would start him in the flex in deeper leagues especially. Justin Jefferson versus Tampa Bay. Although I think that Cousins could struggle to score, I think that he'll move the ball a little bit, and Jefferson should be a really big play. Tim Patrick versus the Panthers, T.Y. Hilton versus the Raiders, Denzel Mims versus Seattle if he plays. He just had a family issue, so hope all is well. But if he's playing, I think that he could be a really big play this week. And then Corey Davis, last week he had a huge week. He exploded. He was a huge play for me. I'm going to keep rolling with him. Jacksonville, they give up 26 points per game to wide receivers. I think you'll see around 10 targets, so play him again this week. Here are some wide receivers to sit this week. Jacoby Myers versus the Rams, Darnell Mooney versus the Texans, Sammy Watkins versus the Dolphins, Christian Kirk versus the Giants, Nelson Aguilar versus the Colts, and then Jalen Reagor. I mean, this is just a really interesting situation because I don't know if Carson Wentz not playing hurts or helps him. Right now, I just can't trust him with Jalen Hurts coming in. It's a tough matchup. The Saints have been kind of on fire. So I would wait and see how he performs with Hurts and then potentially reassess the situation and possibly start him in 2 weeks. But right now, I'm going to sit him. Here are some tight ends to start this week. Hunter Henry, Evan Ingram, Rob Gronkowski, Noah Fant, and then Robert Tonyan. He just gets consistent volume, 5 targets each of the past 3 weeks. He has a very good touchdown upside. And with tight ends, it's very difficult this year. You never know what's going to happen. I would just have to play a lot of these studs and hope that they pop off again for the playoffs. Here are some tight ends to sit this week. Tyler Higbee, Trey Burton, Jared Cook, Zach Ertz, and Jimmy Graham to me is going to be a sit. Cole Kmet had 7 targets last week while Jimmy Graham only had 1. I think that the rookie is going to be getting a lot more playing time, being that the Bears are kind of out of contention. I could see him getting more snaps, more usage, and potentially this Bear teams will look towards the future, and that is Kmet. Here are some defenses I would start this week. Carolina versus Denver. A lot of teams going from the west to the east kind of struggle, so I think that would be an interesting matchup. Maybe they get a turnover or two. Dallas against Cincinnati, Seattle against the Jets, and San Francisco versus Washington. I think that could be a little bit of a letdown game for Washington offensively. Although they move the ball, maybe they don't score many points, maybe they have some turnovers. If you guys have any questions, please reach out to me, comment below, hit up my Instagram at @thefootballtherapist, and DM me. I'm here to help you guys in any way I can. Good luck, don't overthink things, and really have a good week in a fantasy playoffs.